Yeah, so Alex, you think go ahead and maybe get started?
Yeah, sounds great.
Sure. Great. Well, welcome everyone. Good evening to many of you, and also good morning to our speaker tonight, and so anyone else, joining in from around the world. We're really excited to have Kotchakorn Voraakhom to join us tonight, Kotch for short. I'm going to leave the introduction to Alex May, but I want to just briefly talk about a couple of things. This is not officially, but the last architecture, landscape architecture and urban design lecture of this semester. We're in our final couple weeks here, as we were just talking about with Kotch. So I know people are probably pretty tired and getting towards the end. So we really appreciate you joining tonight. And my name is Derek Hefferlin. I am an associate professor here at the Sam Fox School, and I'm chair of the landscape architecture and urban design programs. So I'm especially excited to have our speaker tonight, because I think you'll quickly see, without stealing her thunder, that Kotch is really great about talking about and designing aspects of responding to climate change, to flooding, to really serious issues that confront us, but in a very optimistic, proactive way. And I think that's the kind of design we need right now. And here in St. Louis, we're in the center, of course, of the North America, but also the center of the Mississippi watershed, where we have, of course, the Mississippi River, but also other great rivers here like the Missouri and the Illinois and its tributaries within this much larger system that is the fourth largest watershed in the world. And of course, our location makes us very intimately connected to a much larger system. So anything that's happening upstream or things that happen downstream, we're connected to this dynamic system. So it's something that's very important to me, of course, in kind of the landscape architecture and urban design programs. And it's been really great to have speakers come in to speak to that. I met Kotch through Alexandra May, Alex for short, who is a lecturer here in both our architecture and landscape architecture program. And she's a graduate of our WashU undergraduate architecture program. And then she went on to pursue her Master of Landscape Architecture from Harvard's Graduate School of Design, where she went on to win the thesis prize, as well as fellowships to conduct research. She's published. So we're very lucky to have her back in St. Louis and part of our programs. And this was really Alex's idea, to generate a series of discussions that tied into two of her classes that she's teaching. She's teaching 3 classes this semester, which is incredible, but 2 of which are tied to this series called Landscape Processes, which our speaker is about tonight. So without further ado, I'm gonna pass it to Alex so she can give the introduction to the great things she's been running this semester.
Awesome, thanks, Derek. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm surprised. Well, thank you, and to everyone also who has joined us tonight. We're really excited to have Kotch here. And I also wanted to thank Kotch for also being here, because it is her 7 a.m. So we really appreciate you waking up early to join us today. So before I introduce Kotch really quick, I just wanted to note a couple of logistics. So firstly, today's evening lecture is part of the Sam Fox School's public lecture series, as well as a series, as Derek had began mentioning, titled Landscape Processes, that I have organized as part of 2 landscape architecture courses that I'm currently teaching in the MLA program at WashU. So you can find all of these events on our Sam Fox School website, including the last talk in the series, which is going to happen tomorrow at lunchtime with Pamela Conrad. So this session is also being recorded for us to share with those who cannot make it today. And we also have live captioning available, which you can switch on and off at the bottom of your screen. Throughout the presentation and after, you can submit questions for Kotch in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll open up for questions throughout Kotch's presentation as well as after she speaks. And then so lastly, thanks to our partnership with the ASLA St. Louis chapter, we are able to provide 1 free LACES approved credit for those attending today. If you would like to earn this credit, you can fill out the Google form, which I'll link to in the chat in a little bit. And so without further delay, I'm very honored to introduce our guest today. So Kotchakorn Voraakhom is a landscape architect from Thailand who works on building productive green public spaces that tackles climate change in urban dense areas and climate vulnerable communities. Her firm Landprocess is internationally known for its work in transforming urban sites into more porous and resilient landscapes that mitigate the increasing impacts of flooding and climate change. Koch is also featured in the 2019 Time 100 Next list from Time Magazine, as well as the Green 30 for 2020 by Bloomberg. Last year, she was also named on the list of the BBC's 100 Women, on InStyle Magazine's Badass 50 Women Who Are Changing the World. And she also received the 2020 UN Global Climate Action Award, Women for Results. So you can see how lucky we are to have her here today. Koch is a chairwoman of the Landscape Without Borders of the International Federation of Landscape Architects in the Asia Pacific region. She is also a TED Fellow, an Echoing Green Climate Fellow, and Atlantic Fellow. I'll also add that Koch and I met through our professor, our common professor, Neil Kirkwood at the Harvard GSD, where we both went to school for Masters of Landscape Architecture. And Neil also joined us for a lecture last week. And since I've met Koch in Bangkok a few years ago, I've been very inspired, continuously inspired by her work, not only the landscapes that she is constructing, but also how she advocates for the environment, and as well as landscape architects and the necessity for our profession. So without further ado, welcome Koch, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for the kind introductions, and thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be with you guys tonight, my morning. Yes, let's start, and feel free to drop questions or share your thoughts about the landscape or different landscape I'm sharing with you. So you guys see my full screen? Yes. Okay. Yes, so thank you, Alex. Alex has been mentioned about this. I have my TED Talk. You guys can check out my TED Talk. And actually, this is kind of like first time I've been invited to become a keynote at the UN event. It's called NAP, National Adaptation Plan. And people like around the world, the government sector, they try to get this kind of like funding from the UN, like 1 million US, or yeah, maybe 3 million US, or each country. So everyone's like write the paper to like submit this thing. And this is like first time I exposed to like UN things, and I just like, well, like why landscape architects, and why I'm like the keynotes and all this thing. So I'm actually like doing my presentation and finish, because like as a keynote, you're the first person. Then I'm actually like go around other panel discussion, and I find out something. Yes, and yeah, last year I got an award from the UN, and right before COVID, I'm actually taught at GSD and with Neil Kirkwood, like my teacher, my professor, my mentor, and my many things. And we actually brought students to Thailand, and this is great fun to have like a very prominent students around the world to come to learn about climate change in Thailand. And yes, and like this is considered as a country with just like the runway from airport and the some few residence area. It's called Marshall Island, and it's actually struggling from the zero rise. And this is like wetland, marshland, delta landscape. And we actually known that this kind of landscape kind of absorb more carbon, like 3 times more than forest. But as like human development and urban development, we feel that, oh, this is just wetland equal waste land. So we're not really like concerned, like it's like swamps, so we dumped it, we create, this is like, yeah, this is the most productive landscape that help climate change. This is what we used to look like, but right now, seeing this huge 20 million people city actually built on those kind of land, those landscape, the wetland, the marshland, the salt marsh. And so how could we not getting flooding problem? Because flooding is part of how the landscape create, and is part of the land here. And we actually, many cities in Southeast Asia actually grew up, grown from agricultural culture. So this is like the best place to grow food for the world. And this is what we look like at the border. If you can see, like at the horizon is like Bangkok's there. So it's not like really far. And people are just like having fun and just live our life without thinking that, yeah, sea level rise. And nowadays, like within the like 3 months a year, we would get like sea intrusion, which is make the tap waters like really salty. And I try on many like projects to build like to plant like mangrove trees like inland is, and actually go really good. That's mean like underneath what we're seeing, the sea level rise is actually like not something that you have to see from flooding, but it's actually like in the underneath process of the landscape as well. Okay, so back to the UN things. And then I just like everyone talking about natural based solution. This is great idea, and you know they're right really well. But when it's come to the solution, they build dams. So I just like, this is not a natural based solution. This is based on fear and defensive solution. And this is happen all over like in my country, because government think that to build dams actually protect flooding, but think about it, it's the same amount of water. And this is what we look like after 30 minutes of rainfall. And sometimes this is like very classic. This is very normal for Thai people, like the crocodiles coming on the street and blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of like, yeah, and this is like the first time in the history of 50-year drought, the most drought period in, yeah, and plus with the Mekong, because we are part of the Mekong, the river system as well. But luckily, because Thailand watershed is actually within one country, and of course a little bit from the Mekong watershed as well. So it's kind of promising that we can actually manage our own water resource within the one country, but in reality, that is not really the case, because even in the US, you have so many like states that running through like, let's say Colorado River and many other river. So it's actually transboundary. And PM 2.5 is actually been our life, part of life. So we breathe in, the particle is actually like so small that it's like kind of stuck into your lung right away. And people have to like breathe this thing. And this is like so important. I'm actually talking to all this developing country that you guys have such a great system of like separate the waste and many other things. But many of the waste has been imported to our countries, like in my region. And it's actually like so not fair. We actually import rice, food, fruit, good things to you guys, and you guys send all this to us. It's like, this is so bad because it's so expensive to process in your country of this waste. So you just like, yeah, let's export this and sell this to Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia. This is okay, stop doing this. And the government like still want this kind of little money, which is, I think in the long run is actually not even like worth to accept all this thing. So it's come to pandemic, is being crazy. This is like our third round of spreading, and it's spreading really fast this time. We actually hit the highest people infected in per days. And I'm actually like thinking we're gonna have APEC. APEC is like Asian Pacific Region Economics kind of group talking, and I was invited to give some thoughts of the Bangkok chapter, which is gonna happen next year. And they're still talking about GDP. They're afraid to talk about climate change because that's kind of ruined all the economic systems. And we are still based our thinking of developing with GDP. Like you sit in a car, burning gas, GDP is up. You stay with family, you know, go to the park, the GDP is down because you don't spend money. And the whole world is still like based this kind of like thinking in the way of developing. And I just feel that this is so not making sense. And if we continue doing that, which we shouldn't, like many of the world leaders came out and talk about it. And if your leader not talking about it, they are not relevant. So I think we actually at the point is we either adapt or we die. And this is like the first time in my life, born and raised in this city without seeing any tourists. It's just like so empty, Bangkok without tourists.
During the high tide, for example, the sea level is already higher than Bangkok.
And actually, canal is a so important part of Delta landscape. And people, we used to be called it the Venice of the East. But we used to have like almost 4,000 canals in the city. But right now it's only like
Bangkok has situated on the soft clay.
paved one.
And there are layer of clay and sand. We don't have any rock layer. Some area, especially Bangkapi area, has been sunk for 1 meter already.
We don't concern much about our natural waterways, which is canal. So that means we neglect about how the water will drain. And Bangkok is such a unique landscape because the way we flood, we can live with flooding. Like flooding is not something like bad things like the one in Tokyo that is going to ruin your house, so you have to step away. So the flooding is like really kind of source of food friendly place, and we can swim, we can like, you know, our architecture is on stilts. So we used to live like very harmoniously with how the changing of the season, the changing of the landscape. But in this past 50 years, we are really focused our city like on the way, like the city. This is part of the solution that can be replicated in other city or within the city, that we need more space, more place to hold the water. Like we don't think about the waterways, we think about road. We don't think about boats, we think about car. It's very basic, but this actually transform our city and make it very bad for us as a city. It's like the worst city, the worst place to have a city. And with the climate change impact is become even more difficult. I think there's so much work to be done, and we need to act faster. We have to be very more action-oriented rather than just keep all this research of climate change with on the shelf. So the policy maker or the community have to come together. It's a good start, but it's definitely not enough. Yes, so yeah, so last year I have a chance to, no, last 3 years I have a chance to finish one of the project. It's actually like the first part in 30 years. And at that time people are like, yeah, you are young, you're like, how can you build this such like a big multi-millions project? And I just thinking inside that it has been 30 years that this 20 million city doesn't have park. who else gonna have this experience? So why not just do it? So this is Chulalongkorn Centenary Park, and I think Alex has been, my friends probably in the audience has been, and many people has visited. And it's not just park. And this thing is like right downtown Bangkok, and the price of the land like 5 years ago is like 700 million US. That's why no one want to like dedicate their land to like build a public space. So they all built condominiums, shopping malls. And so the university, Chulalongkorn University, have their centenary anniversary. And just like, yeah, we need parking space, we need the building use area. What else should we do to celebrate our 100th anniversary? So I just say, yeah, let's do park. And we actually answer all the requirements and then incline the whole park, because Bangkok is so flat that we need to find a way to restore the water, and having the system of wetland to the part of the architecture. And kind of half of the site is actually architecture, but people feel like this is such like a big park. And we actually restore the rainwater tank. And I have another work, maybe it's still on process, but try to talk more with architect about how the architecture can harvest rain. And rain is such an important part to the landscape that I'm from. We don't have snow, but we have like pouring rain. Like when it's rain one time, it's just like heavy, like pouring. And this is like the wetland after the green roof, the wetland and retention pond. And the retention pond can like flood and double its size. So it's actually the park that designed to flood, and with many features that we have to answer anyway. So it's not just like the normal park that we're talking about recreation, how people are going to use it. The planning of that has already been answered, but the one thing that I really want to focus is like how we're going to add on the meaning of public green space in such a dense urbanization like Bangkok and many other cities. And I was so honored that Mr. Antonio Guterres, like the #1 symbol of climate change for UN, came and visit this park and just like give a big support to this kind of like local solution. Is such an honor. Okay, the other things that we are confronting is food security, and it's come very clear that when it's come to pandemic, this is like maybe like within US, like we can get disease from like getting food, and this is like really crazy concept. But for us, actually, from the food culture, like Thailand, 24-hour city, like you can get everything to eat. But we actually struggle with like poverty in the city, people, the migration, the migrant workers move back, and it's just like empty city. And where can we get food? And what about those who like don't have much money, and the normal impact of like eating meat is actually like requires so much resource to like feed all the cows, the pigs, the chicken and things like for us to eat. And we actually like get so much problem on that. So that's kind of like one problem. And the other problem is the waste space in the city. What is the most wasted space in the city is the rooftop, right? The concrete rooftop create us urban heat island and many things. So we have this waste space in the city, and we have this problem. Why don't like we marriage these two together to become like fix the problem? So this is the biggest urban farming rooftop in Asia. And actually at Kotchakorn recently, we actually not this rooftop, but this architecture becomes a landscape becomes the facade of architecture. I'm working a bit of a kind of architecture. And just water, like right? The farmer harvest rain, create food by slowing down the runoff from the mountain and create this like paddy rice field. So why can't that happen in the city? Of course, we are flat, we don't have mountains. But look around all this architecture. Actually, we destroy the mountain, create like a big architecture of us. And why can't we have this kind of thinking, like get a space on the rooftop and create this kind of solution? So it's done right after COVID, and it's become like iconic piece for the university. And well, Chula is like Harvard for US, and Thammasat is like Yale. So in a way, I got them to compete with each other. So this is like how the construction work. And no one think about, this is the job of landscape architect. Yes, it is. We're actually doing the construction drawing for these terraces. And it's like the way with, we work closely with architects, with engineer, with the client, and put us on the first day of your project. Don't keep us at the last. You're not gonna be benefit much. And it's right now it's become the rice paddy, and people, new generation with iPhone, with Clubhouse, with many other things, they just study and then, yeah, let's have 2 hours, like chilled out in the rice farm, helping, seeding, harvesting. So this is not about only food. The rooftop with the gray area is for solar roof. So it's talk about renewable energy. And when the water drain down, we have full retention pond. So it's collect the water of the runoff. Instead of having a big runoff to the road, flood the sewage public system, which is like so little comparing to the unexpected heavy rain that we have. So this water being kept on site and pumping up and then drain down to create food for the campus. And it slowed down 20 times runoff, normal without this roof, the water, the drop of water coming down for like 5 minutes, it's just like 100 minutes. And with the notion of public space, and it's actually answer many like the public needs, the public space needed in the dense area, the learning of the new activities. It's actually plug in the circular economies to the whole campus. Right, it's the waste, organic waste go. It's go to as a fertilizer in this roof, and it's actually return back the good food to the canteen. One thing you should know that we are the best client for Monsanto. Like we export so much pesticides, top 5 from the US, and we get the food back, but the worst people is like us. We eat so much pesticides. Cancer has been 20 years the cause of death for Thai people, and especially those who like a farmer using a very like paraquat. I can't remember this like 3 guys. Yeah, this like 3 very dangerous chemical things. It seems like the politics thing seems so little when it's come to the business of like food and agriculture. So it's won the award. I'm so honored, but the most honor is won the architecture award, and it's actually the work of landscape architects. So that means we need to work together for the future of architecture. And yes, it's not about aesthetic. It's not so much about the form anymore. I just feel that it's so not relevant if you're not talking about how the architecture can save the city. And if there is a sustainable prize, we got the first one, the first prize. And yes, let me have another project, and we're gonna stop quickly for Q&A before I'm going to the other part, working with a vulnerable community. So this is another project working with like, those 2 are government clients, but in terms of university. But this is more like a real government working with Mayor of Bangkok, Mayor Aswin, and working with urban design UDDC, working with architect and 7A, and working with engineer, and working with like a big group of people. So it's actually come out in this abandoned infrastructure 40 years. Like I don't even notice that we have this kind of corrupted, amputated bridge structure in the city. So with the process of like urban designer talking with participation with the community, and the community mentioned that, yeah, why don't you use that structure? It's been there for like ages. And it's just like, yeah, well, how can we create design? So that's where I'm coming as a designer. And so right now it's finished. Not many tourists because we hasn't opened our country that much, but it's become the first bridge park across the river in any capital city. It's supposed to be from the Sir Norman Foster in London, but it's not feasible. But for us, it's already there for 40 years. We are very smart. So why don't we just like adding some more money and then create this as like the bridge for people? Well, it's there because we're thinking about having a sky train 40 years ago there. And then with the corrupting, with the change of the wind, we moved the route to the other bridge. So this thing left unused for 40 years. And thinking about all this white elephant infrastructure that left over in the city, we have a lot. And what can we do with those structure, with those kind of waste space? Because we cannot rip off this kind of city and rebuild anything, even with the old infrastructure. So helping climate change is also rethink how we can adapt this infrastructure, and such highlights in New York create such a great inspiration for adaptive reuse. And it's actually right in the heart of the landmark of the old town Bangkok, and it's actually finished. And the bridge right across, we got the influence because it's like the bridge that named from the founder of Bangkok. And this is so narrow, 8 meters with 230 meters long in length. So how can we working with that narrowness? So we actually split the elevation and create like many speed of transportation. People can use as like amphitheater, seeing the sunset and sunrise, very beautiful. When the world is getting better, please come and visit us. And yeah, it's been great, and it's such a collaboration with many professions. And as a landscape architect, I'm very honored to be part of this. And yeah, this is, I think it is a new landmark of Bangkok. And we raise up the height so people can't see the view and don't smoke much of the air pollutions. And this is such a nice way of like celebrate the after lockdown in Bangkok. Okay, and I have so many like other wasted space that I'm working with. Like this is like hospital space, and people work there so intense. The government hospital are so dense, and we find this like unused helipad on top of the buildings and turn it into the healing rooftop. And thinking about the mental factor, physical factor, what can the public green space can offer, and using the hospital waste. Urban farming can be part of the healing. The people who work there are so stressful, they really need a better care. And this is like the image from the government hospital. It's not very common in Thailand, other urban farming rooftop. And yes, let's see this clip video, and then please type your question.
We are at the point of risking our life living in the city. Swadika, my name is Kotchakorn Voraakhom. I'm a landscape architect from Bangkok, Thailand. The Chulalongkorn Centenary Park, that was my first public park, and I feel so proud of this project. For Chula, we actually just incline the whole park. It's so simple that we call it gravity. And we're actually using the whole park to collect every drops of rain. When we change into Thammasat University project, we are using the same concept of gravity because it's the cheapest technology that we can find on Earth. But for Thammasat University rooftop, we're actually using the rice terraces to slow down the runoff, to really help to grow food. My inspiration of my design and being a landscape architect is nature. And I think there is so much to learn. It's not only just the form and then the color and its beauty, but it's also its function. How can we mimic those kind of function to really be part of how we create our city? Bangkok is in ranking of one of the most at-risk city of climate change. And I just feel that we are fighting with water in many directions. The rain, the water from the north, the water from the ocean, the sea level rise. I think we're gonna sink. But we're gonna live with water again. We used to live with water, right? So this flooded canal community, they actually been most affected community during the Great Flood in 2011. Landprocess Canal is one of the main canals that put all the runoff from the inner city of Bangkok into Chapaya River. I think they probably have to be in the flood water for like 2 to 3 months, the minimums during that time. Even the seasonal rain get their community to flood. So the governments have this policy to widening the canal so the flood water can flow through quickly and they have more capacity to actually contain more water. Yep. But that means the displacement of all the community. In the future, this will be dams and paved, and that area will be canal. คุณตาคะสวัสดีค่ะโอ้ใช่ They just moved in like 2 weeks ago. I really disagree with the dam structure that's gonna pave all the canal in Bangkok. I think it's such bad solution that going to create more problems for us, for the future of this city. But so much we can do, we cannot change the national policy. Right now, what we try to do is to help the community negotiate with the government to be displaced and then return back to their neighborhood. And for the Landprocess Canal community, we actually succeed on doing that. You saw that compound? The new, before they live like this. So I'm graduate from Thailand. At that time, I just feel like I want to become a great landscape architect. That's my dream. So I push myself to get a job in the good firms, push myself to go into Harvard. And when I get things done, my checklist dreams, and I just feel like I'm still feel so empty. I'm lucky to confront with the Great Flood in 2011. And it's really questioning myself, what can you do as a landscape architect? Being resilient is not about being in one stage. It's like you dance with nature. The floods used to be the source of food, the source of fertilization. The changing of the way we live as a city in these past 30 or 50 years, we completely turn our back to this natural change and call it disaster. We're working in something so doable, but I think we have to have more people advocate for this and create Bangkok the way we love, not Bangkok the way it is.
Let's talk.
It's amazing. I love seeing the videos and the whole process. It's just wonderful.
Thank you.
We have some questions, which is good. And a couple from our students as well. I don't know, Alex, if you want to, or Kotch, you can see them as well. But the first question.
Oh, go ahead.
Maybe the first one's really interesting because it talks about community. You know, where does, it's a question from an anonymous attendee. So thank you, anonymous. Where does the grown food on the green roof go to? School support, local community, or other. So I guess like what happens to the food on the roof?
Yeah, so it's actually been an order from the canteen. Like this is like a full 40,000 members of the campus. So it's a big campus. So there are like some, of course, in the beginning is they plan according to our construction document. But after the second crops, third crops, and continues, it actually plans according to the order from the canteen. So the planting is actually changing, and it's actually introduced a new aesthetic. One thing about doing urban farming is actually it's not a fixed aesthetic, and people are just like, yeah, why it's so messy? Why sometimes it's like so dry? The rice hasn't grown up. It doesn't look green. So I just feel that there are many about doing urban farming or working in a public landscape. You have to really think through this management with your client. And the other thing is you have to educate the changing of the aesthetic that people expect for landscape architect design. Yes.
Yeah, and I guess jumping to the last question, because it's tied in from Tien Hao, one of our students. Hi, Tien Hao. It's his second question, but can this farm provide jobs or food supplies for people living in other parts of Bangkok, the slums or other places? You answered it already, but are there other options or other ways to do it?
Great questions. And definitely 60% of the income go to those who help farming, and 40 is for the maintenance of the farm. So 60% going to the staff, those who like need extra job at the end of the day, and those who like a community volunteer to help on this, students who volunteer to help on this, or is part of their study curriculums. So definitely, and I just feel that we have so many waste space in the city, and we try to figure out the problem of the food security. Why don't we merge the two together? And there's so many slums, informal settlement, in the polite words, and it just, these two things can be married. Or some of the area in informal settlement community, we are such a density, but if you look carefully enough, we still can find opportunity. Yes.
And we have another, I'm going to skip Ben's question really quick, just because I wanted to follow up. I think that's a big question. So I want to get into the other questions really quick about more of the technicalities of your project. So another anonymous attendee asked, have you been able to measure the amount of water stored and air cleaned in your projects?
Yeah, actually, I'm working closely with engineer. I'm actually trying to find the water models that we have to simulate before we build the project, and for Shula as well. Let's see if I can find it. But yes, we actually running the model test that how this thing is gonna clean the water, what's the problem of the existing water in the campus look like. So definitely yes, and when you design something, you need to talk with the engineer very closely, like this is amount of the design, the form that we want, and how much is the water issue can this thing solve or contain, or is there any space that I can have a bigger rainwater tank? And they will say, yeah, this is the limit. And you know, like it's more like a, definitely it's not just like beauty and just the concept, but let me see if I can find it. But yes.
Awesome. And then kind of, or somewhat related, another one of Tien Hao's questions How long can floodwater in the tank of this design be kept? Can it be reused, or will it be discharged directly to a sewer or river?
Yeah, because that's the key, right? Why you keep the water. It's like in Thailand, we used to have big jar, like for the rain, for the farmer to collect the rain and use for like food and use for many other things. So thinking about that in the scale of the architecture that is have its own jar, like so to use, and when it's come to climate change, extremely wet and extremely dry is gonna be even more extreme, right? So people might think, oh, the flooding is such a big problem. No, no, it's actually drought. Thinking about you don't have enough water for 20 million people. And right now there are so many people upstream sacrifice, not having a chance to do their crops twice per year to actually feed people in Bangkok. So I think it's so much inequity, and I think we should raise those kind of problems. That's why we need rainwater tank. We need jar in our house. We need to be more friendly with rainwater that we used to, right? So definitely for future use. Yes.
Awesome, thank you, Kotch. And maybe just to go to Bowen's question, what's your opinion on the water usage that's gathered from stormwater or flood, other than daily water usage or irrigation?
Well, it's actually, well, when you talk about the city, we're not talking so much about irrigation, right? But of course, within the park project, but thinking about we have such a big pouring rain and we cover our land with concrete. So the water have no place to go, can't even absorb underground. And we actually destroy all the canal. So thinking about you having your body and you actually put all things like in your skin, and the vein that is used to drain your blood and things, you actually like caught it. So it's actually the function of landscape itself, the body of the land is not function anymore. So if you have these buildings, all this piece of the land, all the architecture, like help holding the water, and I used to I use this idealized called monkey chic. This is like the term from the previous king that really focus on this thing. It's like you hold the water for the city, and you're not bombarding all the runoff to the public sewage, to the street, right? 15 minutes of rainfall, Bangkok shut down. So it's not about irrigation, it's about releasing the right amount of the runoff as well. And of course, in the US, I heard people talking about the runoff, the drainage tax. But this is like so new to us. We are from like water is like everywhere, right? It's drained. Why do we have to pay to drain the water? But we have to, because we built the city without thinking about the drainage, and it's actually creates so much problem for us. So it's not about only irrigation, but it's about how you're going to use the water in the drought period, and how you're going to stop fresh flood during the rainy season. And there are so many other, you reduce your water footprint, not just have to use the pipe water all the time, which means people upstream sacrifice water for you. There are so many aspects of just having one rainwater tank. Yes.
Alex, want me to take the next? Gosh, you want to keep going?
Yes, sure.
We've got a good.
And yes, to answer Ben's question, it's gonna be some of the new project that I'm working on right now, and it's related to canal. And canal is such like the thing that I want to fix in my city, because it's part of the landscape, it's part of how we live as a water culture, and it's part of us as a human, as a public space. So as my thing is on the water and working with vulnerable community, we are talking with flood canal community, sea level rise community along the coastline still suffering from the climate change impact, and those who in the floodplain inland community. So for the flood canal community, I'm actually have some video.
เพราะเราอยู่นี่มันไม่ดีเลยสภาพแวดล้อมไม่ดีเลยต้องให้มันดีขึ้น
It's like
จะเป็นชุมชนในอัดมันไม่ดีอยู่แล้วอะค่ะ
so
ไม่มีใครอยากรื้อหรอก แต่ว่าเขามาพัฒนาเราก็ให้เขาพัฒนาก่อนนี่เป็นสวนอ้อยเลยแหละต้นเล็กไม้เล็กๆเต็มไปหมดมะขามเทศอ่ะแล้วก็มาถางกันไงคนที่ไม่อยู่ก็มาถางแล้วก็ปลูกอยู่ต้นไม้มันก็หายหมดคือต้นไม้ใหญ่ๆนี่ก็คือที่บ้านเขาปลูกกันเองเขาอยู่กันหลายสิบปีแล้วปลูกมันก็ขึ้นอันนี้ต้นไม้ตั้งแต่สมัยพ่อกับแม่เขาปลูกไว้จนเขาไม่อยู่แล้วจริงๆแล้วไม่อยากตัดทิ้งเราเนี่ยอยากมันจะมีที่ลงให้ไหมอ่ะได้ยินข่าวว่าเขาจะมาเอาไปเก็บไว้แล้วก็มาปลูกใหม่นี่เนาะน่าจะดีมากเลยเนาะแต่เราอ่ะเริ่มมาคุยตรงกับผู้รับเหมาถ้าชาวบ้านโอเคแล้วเราก็คุยให้เขาเว้นที่ไว้เดี๋ยวเรากลับมาปลูกให้น่าจะดีเนาะน่าจะรู้สึกดีอ่ะป้ามาอยู่นี่ก็ตีตั้ง50 ปีแล้วอ่ะแล้วถามว่าป้าชอบต้นไม้ไม่ชอบปลูกเป็นต้นบ้านต้นอะไรใครมองให้จะสวยเนาะอยากจะเก็บอยู่มันเป็นที่ร่มรื่นแล้วก็ใช้ประโยชน์ได้เวลามันมีลูกมีสัตว์ก็ใช้ประโยชน์ได้อย่างนี้อยากเก็บไปทั้งหมดเลยถ้าเก็บได้หมดก็อยากอ่ะเพราะว่าที่บ้านมีต้นขนุนมะขามเทศแล้วก็กระท้อนรู้สึกดีเพราะว่ามันเป็นต้นไม้ใหญ่มันทำให้ร่มเงาร่มเย็นด้วย
ยินดีกับตัวผมเองมากเลยที่ได้ทำงานชุมชนนะครับแล้วก็ได้ช่วยให้ในการนำต้นไม้ที่มีอยู่แล้วเป็นต้นไม้เดิมของชุมชนเนี่ยนำออกไปอนุบาลในพื้นที่ดูแลเขาอย่างดีแล้วเดี๋ยวเราจะนำกลับมาปลูกในชุมชนเดิมอีกครั้งในตำแหน่งที่ถูกต้องเพื่อเพิ่มพื้นที่สีเขียวให้กับชุมชนให้มีความร่มรื่นครับ
Existing trees is such a part of the community soul. So keeping them and keeping that soul is so important. And this is like how we working with them. It's really shifting my perception as a designer because we think like, yeah, this is such a cool house. You should have this. You should have terrace here. You should like, you know, like we overthinking for the user. But when working with these people, they're just like, no, we have 5 of us. We only have this space. I want, you know, like the most use space that can, how much the use space that they can have. And we actually help them to rearrange their community. Normally they're just like, you know, this is canal, they have these two, and you just walk into this alley, and those who face canal throw trash and many other things on the canal. So the new planning is just like tuck them into the other side and then create this public walking way along the canal. It's very basic, but it's really hard because we're talking about 450 households that need to be agreed upon this planning. And is part of the design is actually students from Chulalongkorn University, from South University, and Harvard University as well. I'm actually put them to like helping or when they visit Thailand. This is another new project, and it's actually a canal on a CBD. Right now, people don't think about the canal, and it's just like the canal along the CBD, and this is with the mayor. He actually like explore, because right now canal is a sewage way, drainage way, and that's it in Thailand when it's of the east. So I propose the mayor that no, this is not supposed to be like this. Then pave turning our back to the canal, but it actually should be the place for life. And this is Krong Chamnonsi, which is like CBD part of Bangkok, and we're actually going to turn it into better public space and having a better life quality. and still in process. Is the budget has been approved. Let's see how things goes, and actually create this landscape as a wastewater management to help the canal as well. This is another problems of the coastal community. This is like not in Bangkok. It's the border of Thailand. They don't have enough land because it's so narrow. Behind the Kegel is Cambodia, and so they go.
จะไปอยู่บนบกก็อยู่ไม่ได้เพราะมีพื้นที่อย่างเงี้ยว่าเขาควรที่จะได้รับสิทธิการอยู่อาศัยที่มันถูกต้องตามกฎหมายอันนี้ประเด็นที่
They are all Thai.
ชาวบ้านนั้นแล้วไม่ได้ลงได้20-30 ปีก็ในส่วนของที่เราค่ะถามว่าทำไมในส่วนของพวกเราเนี่ยแล้วทำไมเราต้องอยู่ในน้ำนะคะเพราะว่าเครื่องมือทำมาหากินของเราอยู่ในน้ำนะคะเราทำอาชีพประมง
ถึงแม้จะต้องเทียบแต่ว่าในเรื่องพื้นที่ที่ต่อเนื่องในด่านชายแดนไม่เหมือนที่อื่นนะครับแค่เรามีพื้นที่โนแมนแลนด์คือพื้นที่ว่างเปล่าที่ไม่สามารถจะทำอะไรได้เพราะว่าเขาต่างคนต่างผ่านกรรมสิทธิ์
เริ่มแรกเลยมันอยู่ในชุมชนนี่แหละทุกชุมชนต่างคนต่างปีนขึ้นมันก็พากันออกไปแล้วมันก็อย่าว่าแต่ของที่อื่นมาเข้าบ้านเราของบ้านเราเข้าที่อื่นเยอะริ้วเลยเพราะว่าขึ้นลมมันจะแรงครับขึ้นใหญ่แถวนี้ไม่ได้ขึ้นโตถ้าเป็นลมครับมีหลังคาเสียหายครับมีหลายๆหลังจะมีช่วงประกาศวันไทยแต่เดี๋ยวเราไม่ได้ทำบุญต่อเราจะเห็นว่า
ล่วงล้ำลำน้ำอย่างที่ท่านนายกเรียนนะครับก็คือว่าวิถีชีวิตนะครับเรื่องอาชีพก็ได้รับผลกระทบจากกฎหมาย
ท่านนายกแล้วก็ทางผู้บริหารทางกลุ่มคชจะได้นำสิ่งเหล่านี้ที่ไปนำเสนอขับเคลื่อนเป็นนโยบายประเทศได้เพราะว่าที่นี่เป็นที่แรกของประเทศไทยการมีที่อยู่และพื้นที่สาธารณะที่ดีเนี่ยมันควรจะเป็นยังไงนะคะ
I'm thinking about we have 7,000 fishermen villages that having the same problem of the and it's because the community that we improve to have their home and have the right to stay. Not all of them yet, but we do. So this is like a big problem in my country and many other countries, and we're actually able to like having this for the government to present to the UN Habitat days that they're gonna fix this problem. So we actually like help motivate and move to the right direction. And the last community before I get the final Q&A is a floodplain inland. It is in the northeastern of Thailand. And thinking about these people are most vulnerable from the climate impact, right? Sea level rise, many other issues. It's not only just talk about climate change. We have so much related problem with the land right, with many other things to displace people. So this is a thing that we have to do even more. So we have a high-speed train project to like build this big mega infrastructure and have a station. And many of the stations stop in the middle of, let's say, like nowhere or small villages that they have to displace people. And they use, of course, that this one thing that the city needs to be developed, but also these people, they live illegally. That's why the land can be turned into this. It's owned by the railway department, and so they say, okay, to do this and many other things, we got this 400 million baht budget for your dams, and this is a floodplain. It floods every year heavily, like the flood going to high up to the ceilings because they live on floodplain. And this is a normal pattern of the water, and they want to build a dam on the red boundary. So we just like, yeah, you're gonna be safe, but the people downstream will flood even more. And it's your neighbor. Are you gonna do this 400 million budget things? And it's gonna flood yourself too, because the water is not coming from this direction. It's actually coming from like the runoff from the ground and many other things. So what's the dam for? And we actually show them the before situation, and this is what it's gonna look like. 400 million baht, 400 million baht, yes. For people over there, just like, yeah, big money, we're gonna save from flood. No, you're not gonna save from flood. And your life gonna be changed because you're not able to like walk across the river, and it's gonna flood your house anyway. And this is like example from Jakarta that they pave all the river, and government love to do some kind of this project because it's a lot of money. It seems like it's fixed the flood problem, but it's not. It's actually the same presentation that I found with so many other developing countries in the UN presentation. And this is how our future generation will live, like, where is the river? And this is so sad. And I'm kind of like really against of having dam has many purpose, dam for electricity, dam for many other things. But for dam to protect flood is, you have to think a little bit more. And how can great infrastructure integrate with green infrastructure? Not only green, probably not going to survive the city as well. And yes, this, I think I'm done. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Coach. I think we can turn to the questions because we have quite a few, and I want to hopefully get to all of them. Maybe we can start with, here we go, Micah's question. He says, so Micah's on faculty here at WashU as well. And he says, captivating presentation, thanks, Koch. What do you think is the most powerful strategy and tactic to push people to accept that this work is absolutely necessary? So many great landscape projects never get off the ground in the US or value engineered out due to our economic model and who has the power. How can we do more of this?
Well, I guess I don't have exact answer because politics system are so different. But one thing I can say, if it happened in my country, it's probably going to be more easy to happen in other countries as well. And I just feel that as like a middle person, like, or the mediums to this project, like I'm not working for government, and like try to match the top down and bottom up is very crucial things. Like you got a voice from the bottom up, but you have an access to the top down. So how could you, so one thing that we need to learn is negotiation skill and actually how to negotiate or talk about our design as well. And I just feel that you have to know your audience. You have to have a lot of the set of vocabulary that you use with different audience. And I just feel that as a designer, we have such a powerful tool to create an image that people like understand, or people have the same image and they work toward that image. This is so important. So I'm not sure I'm answer this, but I feel that we have to work both ways. You cannot just work one direction, bottom up, or you work top down. You have to like working like both ways to really push the project. And don't think it well, it's a landscape architect work, but it's not a landscape architect work, it's their work. So how would you put your work as their work and you are in service for that? It's really important gesture as well. And it's not that this is the big country and we just have this movement, and I'm happen to be lucky to be in the right position, to be in the right timing. We tackle the same problem as in the US, probably less, but we tackle the same problem as well. And I'm sure that we need to do more, talk more about it, and make it, yeah, like a big movement.
I think the advice for negotiation classes is really great. And maybe a related question, or I think it is related, from Bhavik Thakar. How did you go about the process of communicating with the public authorities on the need of converting unused public infrastructure into public space and parks? And what were the challenges that you faced along the way in working with public and government agencies?
It's very difficult because you're not talking about the person, right? You're talking about system, and there's nothing wrong that it's not moving because maybe you're talking with the right person, but they cannot move the system. So the question is like, how can you help them move the system towards that things rather than just selling your project? And it's a lot of work and with you, and it's a lot of like negotiation, talking endlessly. But I think so. I just feel that it's have to match your passion as well, like, because otherwise you're gonna give up so easily. If you're not meant to be in the public space realm, you are more like aesthetic resort, of course, that's fine as well. You can fix those problems in the environmental way as well. But working with the public, you're actually trying to change the system and showing the possibility. And don't let all that regulation kind of control you. Let's thinking this is the sandbox or some innovation that will create other people to learn from the project. So the challenge is the system. I feel that people are really like easy to convince. But even I'm talking to the mayor, he have to go convince the prime minister to get the money as well. So it's actually like, yeah, you have to team up with them. Don't feel like I'm going against them, or because if you want to make change, you need more people to ally with you. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So Eric Ellickson, also on our faculty here, says, thank you for the talk. Your work echoes and reinvents Corbusier's architecture as a machine and reasserts landscape this century of landscape as a living machine. That takes bigness. Professor Hefferlin writes about the necessity of being way beyond bigness. You design big. Did you jump to the big scale right away, or did your practice work through smaller scales to learn how to design at these scales?
Well, I actually feel that the problem I'm tackling is even bigger than the thing that I'm working on. So I just feel that I'm still very small, and and you can read it, right? That it's not a policy yet because it's still a project base. If it become a policy, like I'm really admire of like a scape work of Kate off, like it's talking about the bigger landscape, right? That's kind of gesture that your government, your local government is actually thinking bigger than that. So I don't admit that I'm big. It's big in size, but it's actually still not tackling the systematic things because it need a policy. It need maybe in the future. Yes, definitely in the future. And what's the questions again? Just a second. Yeah, and I just feel like thank you to relate like landscape architect with the architect, but I just feel that we have our own language as well. That I just feel that it's great. We will have to work together, but in such the city in such a country that this profession still like minority. Like, what are you working on? Like, can you fix my garden? That's fine, we can, but we can do some other things as well. So I love how an architect is like a big profession that is like, you're talking about white man profession. In Thailand, it's like white Asian profession as well. And Asian people like, yeah, you should be quiet, you shouldn't talk too much. And I just feel that there are some kind of those like masculinity in the profession. Definitely, it's a male dominant profession. And I love how we can relate intellectually, but in profession, we need to be treated equally. And the living machine is actually coming from maybe the sense of understand the nature that they are living system. Like many times I got like, can you have a landscape that zero maintenance, or can I not cutting my grass? You know, like this kind of funny question, but it's no, we actually part of the nature, and we are designer for nature, and we need to work more with architect, not under. Yes.
That's awesome, and I agree. And I also want to, I don't think we have many more questions. Maybe we'll end with Ben's question. But I kind of just want to note how many people are congratulating you and also inspired by your work. I think one thing that I've found about your work is it really pushes, you know, our field, as exactly as you're saying, to be loud and to be to advocate for ourselves as landscape architects. I do wonder, kind of a follow-up question to your answer to Eric's question, is how you're seeing some of your projects, if you are seeing some of your projects shift policies already, and even maybe now that you have a precedent of, you know, the largest urban farm in Asia, now that you have that precedent, does it make those conversations easier with politicians or, you know, the people that you're working with?
Oh, definitely. And I just feel that the power of design is actually the sense of doers that we all have. And if you just have things on paper, I just feel that it's not, of course it's impact at some extent, but it's not very impactful that you can see the one-on-one scale, like people really like happy. Are they happy enough to in your landscape, or are your landscape efficient enough from the concept that you are thinking? And I just feel that it's not perfect, right? Like there are some like details that's not working out. There are some bench that's been breaking down, and there's some cracking and many other things. But for me, the most important thing is to convey the concept through from the day one to the last day. And it takes so much skill, more than just a good designer. It's like good negotiator. You have to be compromised enough. Yeah, and I'm actually learning by doing, and I just feel that and I'm not a policy maker or changing, like to change one sentence in policies probably take years or life, but I'm just feel like I'm rather choose to try to create some space, and then let's do something different. And then when it's done, people can really like feel and understand about it. And you have to, and people are different. So you have to really understand you as a human being, your passion, your skill set that are workable, and choose on the right track that you want to practice the landscape architecture or whatever profession you are in. And try to create that opportunity to make it happen. And I just feel that we need more action. It's too slow, it's probably too late right now to fix climate change, but we have no choice. We just have to continue. Yes.
Wonderful. And I do want to get to Ben's question about what is your next big project. And and you've already talked about, upcoming, a little bit of the work that you're currently working on, but is there anything else that you want to mention? Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually gonna fix the Lumpini Park. Lumpini Park is just like Central Park of New York. So this is like 100th anniversary of this big park in Thailand, in Bangkok. And it's like the first public park. And when we think about park, 100 years ago, it's probably different than park right nowadays, and park in the future as well. So there are so many work to be done. It's not like, yeah, this is already a park, so create more. But fixing the existing park with existing trees and make it more function to the challenge of the city, because city grows so big. And also we have some couple more canals that we want to like put our feet on. And this is not a job of only engineering damming, but it's about the job of how to create place for people. So yeah, I'm just trying to change people's minds about public space and the natural infrastructure in the city that we should be taking care of. Yes.
Wonderful. And we do actually have 2 more questions. So Yishin is one of our MLA students as well. So our first question is just curious about how you connect the rooftop landscape with the surrounding streetscapes. And then, oh, sorry, they're moving on the page. And then second, how do you see yourself as an Asian landscape architect? And do you have difficulties when conducting something related to race and gender?
Oh my gosh. It's so appealing that I want to answer the second one. What is the first question?
I should have split them up a little bit more. The first question, a little more straightforward. How do you connect the rooftop landscape with the surrounding streetscape?
They're totally different questions, but they're also exactly the same, if you think about it. So anyway.
Okay, well, let's keep the second one because it's going to be a long answer. But anyway, for a rooftop, the challenging is the accessibility, and it's failed because people don't know what's up there. It's failed because people don't want to go up. It's really a challenge. Even in the community or in the community mall, like I still have to struggle with like the signage and many other things to fix that problem. But for Thammasat University rooftop, we actually like ask people to go up like from ground. Don't need to go through the architecture, which is like a very ideal design because we got land, we need an iconic architecture, and architect Asomsin let us being that facade by using a landscape architecture, which is very kind of them. We fought some time, but yes. Anyway, so I just feel that the accessibility is part of it. So it's not only just like design something up there, but how you're gonna get people up there with elevator and many other things, still very challenging. I don't have an exact answer for each of the buildings, but it's need public participation, right? From the day one that we're gonna have garden together. And that is so important. It's not just like you're working by yourself and then it's done, it's beauty, but no one know about it or no one care about it. Yes. Okay, being Asian, being female, well, I'm actually don't really think about it much because I'm thinking about Kutch, but people impose so much because the way we look, like we are female and we are like we got a back hair. And I just feel that is really like when I work in the US, and I'm very, very thankful for all that experience. I work in Sasaki, I work in design workshop, I work in MBBA a little bit, SBA, and I'm not kind of racist there, but I can feel that I'm not able to communicate to client directly because of the way I look maybe, or the way I speak English, or I'm not convinced enough. Is another realm of conversation. And I just feel that I've been doing things in office a lot, in like concept things and turn around in that things that's kind of like make me feel like burnout. That's why I come back to have my own practice. But when I come back, it's another challenge that like, what is landscape architect? What are you doing? Looking young, like age discrimination, like, can you really doing it? You know, it just, but I take it as flow to really like, I really have to make this happen. I really have to like make these people realize that it's not about, it shouldn't be defined by gender. The work shouldn't be defined by, it should be defined by me as a person. And it's not about, gender is not about biological. It is, but nowadays it's more like a choice. I can be man, but looking like female, or I can be gay, or I can be many other things. I can be lesbian, or I can be other things, but that shouldn't be part of what I'm working on. And yes, so I just feel that, well, as I look like this, and I should also push the profession that thinking less about gender, but thinking more about individual, and also respect each other more. Yes.
Well, I think that's a really powerful way to end. Alex, I don't know if you have any more. We're getting close to the witching hour.
Yeah, I think we got through all of our questions wonderfully. I kind of just
commending you, Koch, and being inspired, and I hope especially for the students, you know, in their final push, that, you know, they can do this, you know, and I think Linda says it better now than never, right? We have to do this work now. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and just
I can
to
guys too. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, just to follow up your last comment, just I think there's also power in who you are, Koch, and who we individually are, and you know, really celebrating our various perspectives that we bring to the table. I think it's really important. But yeah, thank you on that note. Thank you so much, Koch, for being here and sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us. It's always really inspiring to hear you talk about your work. And I get excited to be in landscape architecture. So I hope everyone who's watching this feels the same way.
And since we're being recorded, I'm going to say, I hope in the near future we get to collaborate together, our universities, and travel again. And, you know, maybe in the interim, you know, we would love to have you part, you know, in teaching more at WashU. It'd be amazing if we could make this work. So we really.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Alex, for having me. Yes, and that's something I need to learn more from you guys as well, and something that Thailand landscape can offer the different perspective, and that's how we fix climate change, by respect one another, and then try to find a creative way to find the innovation. Yes.
Right.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Have a lovely day, Koch.
Yes, I'm ready to start my day. Okay. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.